Another day, another news report from the America for All network.
Good evening. This is Debbie Smith reporting for tonight. I don't know about you, but I am completely fed up with Rush Scumbag. A couple of months ago he endorsed the Faithful Remnant, a right-wing extremist group founded by enemies of ours. The next week, he broadcast a report of my mother having an encounter with a married man, her own ex-husband actually, at a motel. A completely harmless act, but Scumbag made it look like some terrible scandal. But how good a judge of character is Rush Scumbag? Several years ago, he endorsed Ted Anderson, the former mayor of this town, when Anderson was trying to gain back his office. But he never deserved to be mayor. When he held the office, he had his son George sabotage the town's water supply, causing many people to be sickened by drinking it, and a few people even died from this. So the Andersons committed de facto murder. George went to prison after he attempted an act of arson, and then he repented his past misdeeds and helped get his own father sent to prison after exposing the act of sabotage. Today, George has turned his life around, and his father is serving a long sentence. And Scumbag did even worse than that. He also endorsed Ted Wilson, who was presented as a young conservative activist, but he was actually just a hateful, bigoted bully who even as a child sought to make others miserable who did not bow to him. Among other things, Ted Wilson sexually assaulted a girl, Penny Bentley, physically assaulted another girl, Carrie Sims, with a baseball bat, and years later, after being made a cop in this town, threatened both Penny and my brother James, causing Carrie to defend them with her bare hands. You'd think he'd learned from that, but no. He married my cousin Rebecca, had a daughter, Janet, from her, and then murdered Rebecca and blinded Janet. And yet horrible criminals like Ted Anderson and Ted Wilson are seen by Rush Scumbag as upstanding people because they claim to be conservative and Christian. No. This madness must stop. So now, I call upon my audience to strike back at Scumbag by writing to the corporations that pay for his TV talk show. Those advertisers should withdraw their commercials from being shown during the time slot for the Rush Scumbag show. Without that corporate support, that show may be cancelled. Let it be so.
Debbie then displays several physical addresses and email addresses of various corporations known to show ads on the Rush Scumbag show.
And now a moment to mention our program's sponsor, HelloFresh. It is the largest meal kit provider in the United States. It was founded in Berlin, Germany, in 2011 and has operations around the world. So if you're disabled and want fresh meals delivered straight to your home, ready to cook, give HelloFresh a try. Check out www.hellofresh.com for details.
Later, in another part of the Smith-Wilson mansion, Olivia Laker is interviewing Elizabeth Leslie.
So you are recording a new solo album? Will it be released under the Lizzie Borden name?
No, don't be silly. I'm in my 70s now, so I can't expect it to do the punk rock music of my teens. This will be a folk album, like what Jewel used to do.
I love folk music. I can't wait to hear the results. It appears you are going to need surgery to deal with the blockages in some of your coronary arteries. A quadruple bypass procedure.
That sounds serious. I hope we can afford the surgery.
Just file a claim with your insurance company. And slow down your physical activities or your chest pain will get worse.
I understand.
Penny arrives at the Tuscany Tavern to work. And she is almost in tears. She waits for Bella to arrive.
Penny, what's wrong? You look like you're about to cry. Is there another problem with Vince? No, he seems to be fine now. But I do want to talk with you. So, how many children do you intend to have with Eric? We are thinking of having 3. We are already trying to get me pregnant again. Why? James told me last night he absolutely does not want another baby with me. Before I married him, I dreamed of having a large family, maybe 5 or 6 children, But James called me an idiot for even suggesting it.
Penny, there are already over 8 billion people on this planet, and you actually want to make our overpopulation problem even worse? That's crazy.
But James, Vince should have brothers or sisters to keep him company as he grows up. You grew up with Debbie, right?
Well, it's not like I had a choice. I could have done better as an only child.
I couldn't believe how angry he was at me. Was he saying he never wanted Debbie for a sister? And just because he wished he was an only child, that doesn't mean Vince should be an only. I want another baby. I'm scared we might get divorced over this. Penny, come here. You really should have discussed this issue with James long before you got married. Maybe you and he can work out a compromise. Like, you have only one additional child with him. Or even adopt 2 or 3 more children. If you both truly love each other, you can come to an agreement that will benefit both of you. Whatever you do, don't ever try to bend James to serve your desires alone. That's the surest way to drive him away from you.
Meanwhile, at the town's high school. Welcome aboard, James. I hope you enjoy working here as the school's science teacher. Simon always said you were his best student. Thanks! I am ready to begin. Are you sure about that? You and your sister used to give me such a hard time when I was the history teacher. It will be amusing to see how the current generation of teens treats you as an authority figure over them. Maybe you will then regret your past attitude. I doubt it. Just because we disagreed on some political matters doesn't mean I thought you were a bad teacher. You just had a tendency to include your biases in your lessons. And you think science teaching is unbiased? You are going to have to learn that as a human being, bias comes naturally, and your opinions are no more infallible than mine. Now go to your classroom and prepare your lessons. James goes to the science classroom that he once attended with Simon Wilson as his teacher. And there he meets the Leslie twins, Tommy and Tony. Good morning, class. I am James Smith Bentley, and I will be your science teacher this year. For you 7th graders, we will focus on geology and atmospheric science. We will be discussing issues like ancient Earth history, climate change, and natural disasters that result from forces occurring on Earth. I wonder if he will be as nice to us as he was to us at that summer camp. He'd better, or we will report him to Debbie and Carrie. You know, his sister and ours. But someone else is already reporting, James. At the Tuscany Tavern. You wanted to see me, Mr. Bentley? Yes, you arrogant twerp. What does I hear about you fighting with Penny? And maybe even divorcing her? I never would have allowed you to marry her if I thought you'd discard her so easily. What? No, we have not talked about divorcing. We just had an argument last night, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Don't be ridiculous. Whether or not to have more kids is a big deal indeed, one you should have resolved before you got married. And I think you need to resolve it now. Because if she leaves you and takes Vince with her, I won't hesitate to take them back into my home. So you'd better straighten things out. Then when James and Penny return home from their jobs. Why would you be telling your uncle we might be divorcing?
What? I didn't. The only one I talked to about our problems was Bella. Since she is also married and a mother, I was asking her for advice.
And what did she tell you?
That we need to compromise. That one of us should never try to bend their desires to fit the other. So I was wondering, even if I don't give birth to another baby, could we adopt? With the world being overpopulated, there must be other kids who need to be loved and cared for. Why not help one of them?
I can't argue with that, especially knowing how Vicky Sims was adopted by the Sims couple and she turned out so well. So I will agree to have us adopt a child. And I'm sorry I was so harsh with you last night. I just thought you were being irrational and selfish. So I apologize. One day, the Smith-Wilson mansion is visited by Philip McKinsey, the grandfather of Annika. Mrs. Smith, I thank you for allowing me to come here. I understand that you and your wife have had custody of Annika ever since my son Charles and his husband Michael were murdered. For many years, my wife and I rejected Charles because he was gay, but we now realize that was wrong. My uncle and his wife had a confrontation with us about the matter, and they finally convinced us to take responsibility for our granddaughter. My uncle warned me that if I don't step up and do the right thing, he will cut me completely out of his will, but otherwise I will inherit his estate, since he and my aunt have no children.
So your motives for wanting Annika are financial? That does not seem right.
We are only being practical here, since raising a child is expensive. We know we made serious mistakes in how we raised our 2 children, and we have vowed not to repeat them with Annika.
I should hope not. Annika has turned out to be a wonderful girl. I'd be very happy to have her as my daughter, but I know as her blood relatives your claim to her is as strong as mine. So we will go to court and let a judge decide this matter.
Meanwhile, at the town's Unitarian Universalist Church,
So, James, you and Penny have come to me for marriage counseling? Since I have never been married before, I'm not sure how useful I will be.
well, you are not a member of either of our respective families, so we hope you can be unbiased in your advice to and criticism of us.
I agree. We just need to learn how to communicate better. You want to give up ownership of the restaurant and quit working here completely?
Yes. I've been told I must stop eating the rich food here because it is causing problems for my heart.
I understand. Maybe from now on you can bring your own food that is healthier to eat here instead. It's just that this place has been your life for so long. What will you do without it?
I don't know. I just know that I have to change my diet.
Maybe you should look into making much healthier menu options and serving them to customers. I mean, Italian food does not have to be fattening. Offering local options may even increase business for us.
Bella, you're right.
Let's find ways to make most of our food more heart healthy. And not just for Lucy's sake. First Janet, now we may lose Annika too? No. Over my dead body. Debbie, what are you screaming about? Charlie and I could hear you down the hall. Are you all right? How odd that you should be asking about my feelings, since you were the ones who took Janet from me. I could only accept it because I knew you were trustworthy people. But now I may lose Annika too. To a couple that should never have her. Debbie, you didn't lose Janet to anyone. She is still family to you, Carrie and Richard, and I will never say otherwise. But you already had Richard and Annika, so we felt you didn't need to have 3 kids to care for. We thought we were doing you a favor by asking to take her. I guess that's one way to see it, but I did want her anyway. And who is trying to take Annika from you now? Not that couple we knew about before? No, those were Annika's great-uncle and aunt, and they agreed to give up their claim to her. This other couple are Annika's actual grandparents. They rejected their son Charles because they were homophobes. They also disowned their daughter, Annika's mother, because she was a drug addict. And yet they think they can just swoop in and take Annika because they are her relatives by blood. Have you talked to Carrie about this? She's not home yet. She's been working on a case as a detective.
I'm glad we finally finished examining all that evidence.
Right. So now that we can prove our case, let's arrest that domestic abuser.
You can do that yourself tomorrow morning. I need to go home to Debbie. Good night.
Carrie?
Oh,
Carrie, are you sure you are all right? You look really ill.
yes. I'm just... Oh, my head. So dizzy. So...
And then Carrie collapses in the police car. Realizing the situation is serious, Officer Kelly Grimm immediately turns the car around and heads to the hospital. And then about an hour later...
Father, what's happening? I seem to be losing my ability to speak.
Based on the symptoms you and Sergeant Grimm described, you could be having a stroke. It's only a minor one, but it could have damaged the speech center of your brain, limiting your ability to speak.
Oh no. How can this be? I'm only 25.
Your age doesn't matter. Strokes can hit someone of any age.
Carrie. Kelly Grimm just told me what happened. Are you all right? Debbie, I am so sorry. My speech is becoming slurred due to a stroke. I have failed you. Nonsense. You suffering a stroke or some other medical condition is not a failure. Let me take you home and I will care for you. If that is all right, Dr. Lessie.
Yes, you may take her. But bring her back tomorrow for an additional examination by Dr. Farris, our heart and cardiovascular specialist. She will give Carrie a more exact diagnosis and prescribe treatments. Good night.
Debbie and Carrie arrive at the hospital the next morning so Carrie can be examined by Dr. Farris.
So we have confirmed you suffered a minor stroke which has damaged a portion of your brain's speech center. Because of this, you may have difficulty speaking for a while, but with many sessions of speech therapy, you may regain your normal abilities.
So how long may that take?
Several months, maybe a year or two. I will arrange for you to begin seeing Mr. Matthews once a week. He is a speech therapist in Dallas. In the meantime, you should start taking aspirin every day. Aspirin is a natural blood thinner. Your stroke occurred because of a clot that got stuck in one of your brain's smaller blood vessels.
Thank you, doctor.
Carrie then calls Police Chief Root.
It looks like I will have to resign from the town's police force. Yet again because of this disability. I'm sorry.
I understand. You may turn in your uniform anytime you are ready. Thank you for your service.
So what will you do now? With your speech impediment, you also can't be a newscaster for the America for All show.
I have other skills. You know, I used to do painting as a hobby. Now maybe it can be my next job. Make paintings and sell them.
Sure. Let's go to the local hobby shop and buy several canvases and some paints.
So first I need surgery to bypass my clogged coronary arteries. Now we learn that Carrie has suffered a stroke. Clearly, the food we serve at the Tuscany Tavern is harmful. And if that food is harming us, it must be harming others.
Are you sure you are not jumping to conclusions? I, Mother Jessica, Bella, Penny and many others eat that same food and none of us have cardiovascular problems. Maybe some people are more prone to heart disease and strokes than others.
Still, I think having low-cal and low-fat items on the restaurant's menu is a great idea. We just have to figure out how to serve those items.
We can change the menu to have far more solid items. Make the meat items we serve more expensive so people will buy them much less. And serving less meat would be friendlier to the environment.
We could also stop eating meat completely in this household. We could all become vegetarian.
All right, we will try that.
What do you mean, my talk show is being cancelled? Hasn't it been the most successful one on your network? It was for a long time, but no longer. Your show's ratings have been sinking like the Titanic lately. First, you tried to embarrass Mayor Sandy Smith by exposing her having an affair with another woman's husband. But then the husband's own wife, Denise Miller, released a statement defending Mrs. Smith by saying the affair was done with her permission, because the husband, Steve, was an old flame of Sandy's. Then Sandy's daughter, Debbie Smith, released a statement of her own on her America for All network blasting you for endorsing first Ted Anderson, the one who was mayor of the town before Mrs. Smith, and then Ted Wilson, who also came from that same town. You portrayed them as conservative activists, but they turned out to be criminals and are now both in prison for their terrible deeds. And finally, a new movie just came out telling about the lives of Denise Miller and her sister, Diana Kelly, and also including stories about Sandy Smith's involvement with both of them. Miss Kelly even went so far as to kidnap a child to lure Mrs. Smith into a trap to kill her. and Mrs. Smith walked right into the trap to free the child and succeeded in killing Miss Callie. Your vendetta against Mrs. Smith may have endeared you to older viewers, but the younger generations now consider you a laughingstock and ridicule you constantly on social media. And more than a dozen major companies have told us they are pulling their commercials from your show. We can't risk you dragging down our whole network with you, so we are cutting you off. Tonight was the last night you will ever be broadcast here. You are fired.
Okay, we are about to go to court to battle over who gets to keep Annika. What is your position? Carrie and I want to keep Annika because we were the ones named as Annika's guardians in Charles' will and testament. Charles' parents had disowned both their children and so do not deserve to simply take Annika because they are her grandparents. She has a stable and loving home here and she needs that, regardless of whether or not her guardians are related to her by blood. Carrie, are you on board with that?
Yes. Annika belongs with those who already love and support her. That's us.
So be it. To the courthouse in Dallas we go again.
This hearing is to determine which family will be expected to care for Annika McKenzie in the future. Mrs. Smith, please make your opening arguments.
My daughter Debbie and her wife Carrie received custody of Annika due to the provisions of Charles McKenzie's will and testament, which was written shortly after he himself received custody of Annika. He was Annika's uncle. Her birth mother was murdered and then so was Charles himself. Annika's grandparents had rejected both of their children, therefore, they should not receive custody of Annika just because they are related to her by blood.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Mr. McKenzie, please state your opening arguments.
Your Honor, it is true that we rejected both of our children and we realize we made a mistake doing that. That's why we want to do right by Annika. She is indeed our granddaughter and we want to atone for our wrongful treatment of Annika's mother and uncle. Annika is innocent. She shouldn't be apart from us because of our mistakes. What happened to her mother and uncle was not her fault, nor was it ours. Let us become the family we should always have been.
Thank you. I will now hear from witnesses relevant to this case.
I did some research into the background of this judge. Unfortunately, he is a hardcore conservative and he is not sympathetic to LGBT rights. So we will lose Annika for sure? Most likely, yes. Even more liberal judges tend to think blood relatives are naturally better for children than non-relatives.
After reviewing all the relevant issues regarding this case, the court will now rule on it. First, the child in question suffered a traumatic separation from not one, but two custodial relatives, her mother and her uncle. Second, we have two grandparents who have come forward and are willing to raise the child. Third, the current guardians of Annika already have one child they are raising. Fourth, one of those current guardians recently became partly disabled due to a stroke, making it more difficult for her to care for a child, let alone two.
Excuse me? I have a speech impediment, but I am not helpless.
This court will therefore rule that the legal custody of Annika McKenzie must now go to her grandparents, Philip and Lisa McKenzie. They may take her now.
What? Oh no. Don't I get a say in this?
Now I've lost two girls. I am so sorry. All right, Annika is now yours. But you had better always treat her right. Or we will come after you if we find you have failed to care for her the way we have.
There is no need for threats. My wife and I already know the consequences for failing to be good parents. That's why we want to redeem ourselves now. We will allow your daughter and her wife visitation rights to Annika as long as she is with us, I promise.
So be it. Carrie, I want a daughter. I know I said we would have only one child, but now I have changed my mind. Can we adopt? Please?
We still have baby Janet in our home. Isn't that enough?
A year ago I would have said yes, but now my heart feels so empty.
We will get over this. Let us focus more on Richard and appreciate him for us being his mothers. Annika loved him too.
Mother Debbie, Mother Carrie, I am so sorry. Today, I lost a sister. I need to see you again, Diana. Annika is gone. Just as Janet was taken from my mother's, so was Annika. This is so unfair.
I agree. I wish I could hug you right now. Hey, how about I come visit you for Christmas? Or New Year's?
Your parents would have to bring you, but yeah, let's do that.
Mother, could we please go on another visit to Texas? I want to see Richard again.
Diana, we can't just go on a trip so you can see one person, however much you adore him. But maybe if the Hudson family band goes on another tour and we go to Texas again. Yes, you may see him.
Yes. That would make me happy like nothing else.
So has Peter Bruno or his sister Karen been bothering you?
No, they have been keeping their distance. I was worried when Annika got taken away to Dallas by her grandparents, though. She was like a bodyguard to me.
Well, now I will take her place. As people of color, we need to stick together against these white bullies.
You do realize I am half white and my mothers are white?
That doesn't matter. I will protect you anyway, just as you will protect me, eh?
So what has Carrie been doing lately? Well, between having to quit the police force and losing custody of Annika, she has been in her bedroom painting constantly. Every day she makes a new painting. Debbie is the one I'm worried about now. Losing Annika has caused her to plunge into a deep depression. I didn't realize how attached she was to that girl. I guess she wants a second child? She could easily get pregnant again. True. But she would need to find another sperm donor.
Excuse me, but I'd like to offer a suggestion.
You think Carrie and I should try being foster parents? There are thousands of children in Texas alone who have been removed from their original parents for various reasons, including neglect and abuse. You can provide a loving home for one of them. And the state of Texas will even pay you and Carrie for fostering. That sounds like a win-win situation.
Debbie and Carrie go to Dallas to ask about becoming foster parents.
Yes, we can allow you to foster a child and you get paid for it. Usually, you would be expected to keep a child for a few months, unless you decide you want to adopt.
So what children do you have available now?
Well, about a month ago a 15-year-old girl gave birth to not one, not two, but 3 babies. 2 girls and a boy, named Sarah, Susan, and Sammy Belmont.
Triplets? Having one baby is tough enough. How could a teen bear 3?
Somehow, she managed. But she and her parents couldn't afford to care for 3 new babies, so she decided to give them up for adoption. Now, if you are willing to foster these triplets, we will pay you well for the trouble. But we insist if they be adopted, they must stay together. And most couples do not want 3 babies at once, so we have no expectations about you taking them permanently.
Actually, I have an idea on what to do with these babies. We would just need help from our relatives.
Debbie, what are you suggesting?
We will discuss it after we return to the town.
The next day, Debbie, Carrie, James, Punny, Vicky, and Paul meet at the Tuscany Tavern.
So my proposal is that each couple adopt one of the triplets. I and Carrie take one of the girls, James and Penny take the other girl, and Vicky and Paul take the boy.
Since we are all related, the triplets would still be together in one family. They will keep their original names. And since we all live together in this town, they will still be together.
So in essence, the triplets will have 4 mothers, me, Carrie, Penny and Vicky. And also 2 fathers, James and Paul. And 2 older brothers, Richard and Vince. A perfect win-win situation for all of us.
Debbie, your idea is absolutely brilliant. I love the way you can think outside the box. I endorse this.
Then let's vote on it. All in favor of the plan, say aye and raise your right hand. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. And so my vote makes it unanimous.
Great. Now let's all go to Dallas and claim those babies. I'm so glad you all agreed to the plan. So now, I, Lucy, and Sandy will be grandmothers to 3 more children. You think you can handle that? Sure. You can never do too much good in this world, after all.
Debbie, Carrie, James, Penny, Vicky, and Paul all travel to Dallas to claim the triplets.
So let me get this straight. You 3 couples all want to adopt these triplets as a form of collective parenting?
That's right. 2 of us couples live in the same household and all 3 couples are in the same town. So the babies will still grow up together.
I am Debbie's brother and Vicky is Carrie's sister, so legally the triplets would still be cousins, but they will know each other as siblings and we will all be parents to them.
We know how unusual this must seem, but surely you can see this is the best option for all involved.
It would seem an obvious solution now that you have brought it to me. So I will do a background check on all of you to see if you are all acceptable. Once that is done, you may be permitted to sign documents to adopt the triplets.
And to make a long story short, the background check showed all the prospective parents had clean legal records, and so the adoption of the triplets was approved. Debbie and Carrie got custody of Sarah Belmont, James and Penny got Susan Belmont, and Vicky and Paul were given Sammy Belmont. 1 week later, a party was thrown at the Smith-Wilson mansion to celebrate the adoptions.
Debbie. This is why I love you so much. You are so brilliant as well as beautiful. You made so many of us happy now. I can't believe how lucky I am to have 5 grandchildren now. Oh! Isn't Sarah adorable? She reminds me of Debbie herself 25 years ago.
Maybe Carlos and I should look into adoption too. Sadly, we were never able to have kids of our own. But we will be glad to help with these babies if you just ask us.
I am so proud of Paul for stepping up to help with these babies. Let me know if you need anything, okay? Of course. I guess you are now a de facto grandmother too.
I am so thankful we could agree to this arrangement. I feel like our marriage has been saved. I love you.
I made a promise to you and I always keep my word. We are now parents to 4 kids and our hearts are full to bursting.
My heart surgery has been scheduled for next week. I just hope all goes well.
Me too. Those triplets should certainly grow up to know how wonderful you are. Your life is the best argument against all forms of bigotry. You are a great mother and grandmother.
Thank you. Jessica and I just do our best. It's amazing how we went from being conflicted because of children, and now that same issue has brought us closer together than ever.
Debbie and Carrie really did make this mansion into a house of love, didn't they?
Indeed, I am amazed at how this whole town got turned from a place of corruption and bigotry to one of love and true integrity. I'd like to think we all played a part in bringing that about. Of course, I still miss Annika, but at least I will still see her occasionally and call her often. Now my hands will be full because of my new brother and sisters.
Right. I expect you to set a good example for them, and to love them just as the rest of us will.
Of course. You and Mother Carrie taught me how to love. And I will pass on that love to anyone who needs it, I promise.